Hi, I'm Anuradda Gupta, founder, CEO, and lead matchmaker at Vows for Eternity. And welcome to Heart, a podcast that takes you to the heart of people's lives and what makes them who they are. Welcome to the last episode of our first season of Heart to Heart. Thank you all so much for listening in. Remember to please like and subscribe to Heart if you've enjoyed it, and do tell other people about it. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with acclaimed film producer Guneet Monga. She is known for her work on films such as Lunchbox, Gangs of Wasseypur, and for the documentary Period, End of Sentence, for which she also won an Academy Award in 2019. This chat, of course, is about much more than Guneet's career, and I couldn't wait to hear what she had to share. Guneet, welcome and thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Anu, for having me on your show.
I want to start with going back a few years. I think the childhood is a very defining time for all of us. And you grew up in a middle-class family in Delhi, and it was a very sheltered, protected, loved childhood and the first few years of your life. And then there was a massive change. Tell us about your parents and your childhood, your growing up years in Delhi.
Sure. I mean, of course, my parents and I were best friends. And I think they had so many dreams for me. And I did grow up in a very big house I was born in a very big house in GK2, but my parents and I only had access to a very tiny room. We had kitchen in that room, and we had a bathroom, and that was it. The rest of the house was off limits. It was long-standing family dispute, which was beyond my understanding. But I was pretty sheltered. I was obsessed by the tiny kitchen. I don't even know how my mother managed to make everything in that. It was so tiny. It was literally like 2 tiles, like that space. But it was so pretty. And as a child, I was fascinated because everything seemed like out of a doll room. But yeah, growing up, it was for 12 years, I stayed in that house. And then on one violent day, shit was really hitting the roof. I think there was a lot of aggression in the family dispute, and we fled the house overnight. There was like trucks of police, and it was crazy. I really relate to that movie, Life is Beautiful, where I was so sheltered and everything was falling apart. But I was super sheltered by them. And we moved to outskirts of Delhi in Surajkund and started life again in like identical buildings, small apartments, 4 apartments in one floor, 9 identical small buildings. And my parents used to always say that this is stopgap arrangement. We stayed there for 8 years. And for me, it was the best time of my life. I made colony friends. That GK2 house on Main Road, I was never allowed to step outside. I didn't know who the neighbors were. I had so many colony friends. I had a real life in the evening, and I grew up with like so many friends. So I was very happy living in a community of sorts and having all these families and similar age group people, growing up with them. And by the time I was 20, we came back to South Delhi in Kailash Colony. And then I think 3-4 years later, they both passed, which was crazy. Because I think we were just beginning to stabilize and buy a property and, literally waiting to start our idle life. But I think they really have given me everything beyond their means, being the only child and, really loved and protected, and had so many dreams for me. Like I was 16 and I became a DJ. I was 14 when my dad taught me driving, and he's like, you should go to Himalayan Rally. I think he made me the entrepreneur I am. He made me the risk taker I am. And there's a lot of influence of their dreams, and that I own my hustle and I do what I do, and the fearlessness comes from them. So I think not afraid of starting life over because I saw them do it. And I think that's what has led me to whoever I am today.
Being an entrepreneur, I've always felt that a lot of that also comes from the fact that, you reach a stage in life where you just feel like I have nothing to lose. So where will I go from here? And I think a lot of times that is what gives one the fire, because you've got all these dreams and everything. And sometimes it's just the dreams, but you don't have enough fire. In my case, there was a point in time when I think I hit rock bottom emotionally, and I just had nothing else to lose. And I said, well, upward and onward, and let's see where life takes me. What was that like for you?
I think that moment happened twice in my life so far. One, of course, when I lost my parents, I was 24. They both passed in 6 months of each other. I was 23 and 24. And I left Delhi lock, stock, barrel and moved to Bombay. We didn't have anything. Like, it was just really humble lives. And for me, it was like, how does it get worse than this? And it was only like every day is only one step ahead. And I was able to just, I threw myself into work, and work gave me all my validation and gave me all my comfort and love. And I worked with friends, and I took far more responsibility than I could chew, and then struggled to deliver it because I was also escaping from emotions. Only look back and join these dots. I didn't really know at that point of time so systematically that is what I was doing. But when you look back, you're like, okay, I was just escaping it and putting so much energy into work that I used to go back home and just crash. Like, there is no energy left to think about any other thought to even cross your mind. That was the first time when I think I felt like, what can get more worse than this? And the second time was that I was part of setting up a company, and that company was shut down by my producing partner. So I think the second time was that when I was like, I was not prepared for that. And again, grown up to realize that I can do this on my own. And now I have my own venture. And I'm only grateful for that day now, looking back, that, now I'm doing everything myself. But that day was very hard to again pick up your stuff and find that you're no more in a safe space and you just have to start from scratch with maybe new set of people. I didn't want to. So I did deal with a lot of low phase, but then one step at a time, maybe there was energy that I found. I found a spiritual practice to follow, and that allowed me to build it back.
Yeah. There are some things which is very difficult for someone, no matter how empathetic a person is. There's some things that are very difficult for somebody else to understand unless somebody has gone through it, themselves. And I think losing a loved one is one of those things. It's just, just the rawness of that emotion. I saw that in my life. When I lost my sister, it was a very, very intense 6-7 years in my life where nothing seemed to make sense. And, you have this diverse range of emotions. You're good one day, and then you have a lot of anguish and despair and helplessness the other day. And then you're angry the third day. And you just go through this whole sort of circle. And nothing really makes sense. And then for me, one day I don't know whether I gave in, whatever, but I just learned to accept. And I stopped fighting and I stopped looking for answers. And that's when I felt that for me, the tide changed. I started feeling a sense of calm. I became more grounded. But then I was also a very different person. When you lost your parents, were you looking for answers? I'm just trying to understand, is this a common thing? I mean, did you have a path? Did you have answers you were looking for? Or how was it for you?
I had to figure survival. There was no time to think about anything. I mean, my parents didn't have any life insurance. We didn't have anything, It was, how do I get to Bombay? How do I start working together? So I just wanted to work, and I was grateful for job opportunities so that I could work and pay my rent and figure it out, because there is no backup. There is nobody I can call if I don't have the rent to pay for next month. So I just needed to figure it out. And I think that desperation didn't leave me any time for any kind of soul searching at that point of time. And grief has a different way of playing out for everyone. For me, everything came together when I was asked to leave the company. So at that point of time, it was 6-7 years after I had lost my parents. At that point of time, I felt burnout, grief, loss of my parents, and betrayal. So I felt a lot of shame that maybe I did something wrong. Maybe I was not a good daughter. All those questions came to me. Maybe I could have done something better. And then a spiritual practice and therapy really helped articulate a lot of questions. And I was 29 and 30 by that time. So for me, when I was 23, 24, it was survival. There was no family member or anything offering me, saying that, okay, we'll cover your rent. There's no choice.
Right. You spoke about therapy, and especially in India, the mental wellness side of things. In a lot of instances, it's almost like it's under the carpet. It has to be brushed under the carpet. One can't really talk about it. Whereas it's really another dimension of well being. Did you ever deal with depression, or did you reach out for help? Is that something you've done openly?
Yeah, a lot of my friends actually were going to a healer, and my beginning of my healing started when I started having my spiritual practice. I follow Guruji, and it is all related to Gurbani, so it was all very close to home. It's what I have heard growing up, and it was very easy to understand and adapt. There was, of course, loss of faith or believe in any kind of universal energy after I lost my parents, but I found a lot of peace in that. And I was actually in LA for a campaign in 2016. So 2014, my spiritual journey started, and 2 years later, I was in a for a Tamil film. I was doing a campaign, and I was living in LA for 3 months, and I was living with a director and with one of my producing partners, and both of them had huge experiences about healing and about therapy, and and they were both my seniors, and they actually told me that I should seek out and I should talk to a healer, and that'll give me a lot of clarity. So I didn't even understand what does this mean and how does this happen. I didn't know enough, and just speaking to the healer opened up a world of like articulation, world of like, oh my god, because you're just burdened with so many emotions, you can compartmentalize them and navigate through them, is the first time I figured in 2016. And then when I came here and a lot of my friends were going to this one healer, I went there, and then she told me that you should also see a psychiatrist for your therapy. So then I signed up with someone, and it was amazing. Like I genuinely think my world opened up, and I doubled down on it. And I was like, I need to understand that this is normal. What I'm going through. Like I was just living with guilt. I was living with self-assumed, sense of loss, sense of not being good enough, this overachiever syndrome, and not, there was a lot of thoughts to navigate from, and they started making sense. And I think all of them put together, the spiritual practice and the healing and the therapy, made me who I am today. And I'm grateful, But yes, there was, I think, a 3 year long period of figuring it out. I didn't know that therapy existed. I don't think growing up in a middle class family or with that access at that point of time even knew what it was. And even when I knew what it was, I was like, oh my God, it's so expensive. I can't afford it. Till the time I experienced it, and I was like, this is priority. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. And I think sometimes we don't talk about it. It makes a world of difference. And I'm really glad that you spoke about that, because I think sometimes it's just as simple as getting that little direction, which sort of magnifies tenfold, right? Because somebody else is helping you through something.
I think clarity of thought and therapy both is highly underrated. We live our lives thinking we know everything, especially Indians, with our life experiences, we have advice for everyone else. So definitely for our own selves, we know everything. So with that kind of thought process, lack of clarity and dealing with so many emotions is, highly underrated. Like people don't understand what it means. Like it's a gift if you have clarity of thought. That further implies that there is a clarity in vision, and there will be a clarity in your ask, in your do's and don'ts, and in your path, and that will manifest everything that you want to. So just getting that fog away, and if there are step by step work to be done for it, then why not, But people don't invest in it, and people have taboo about it, which is pretty sad. They're missing out a whole window in their brain of opportunities.
I agree. It's very interesting. You said manifest. Do you believe in manifestations and affirmations and all of that? Because I do, and sometimes I think, I'm a little bit Looney Tunes, but
I believe in the power of ask. I think ask and you should get it. I mean, we underestimate ourselves and we underestimate the power of asking, I believe that there is a universe that is listening to us. And I mean, I've been asking, I want to win an Oscar, and holy shit, it happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think we underestimate the power of ask. You get what you ask for. Again, clarity of thought. So it's all connected to that. The minute you're clear, the path opens up on its own. You're in the flow, you're not blocking your own flow and your own journey in life. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Especially in the last couple of years, maybe it's as one is getting wiser, and I think that these are a couple of things that I've sort of figured out as well, that this universe is ready to give you something. But if you don't ask, it doesn't know that you want it. So you really have to speak rather than earlier I used to assume I'm just going to be quiet and, it'll figure it out. But hell, you have to really speak up and ask for it. So I'm totally, totally in agreement with that. And it's very, very powerful.
Yeah, people have often asked me, oh my God, how did you even meet, this person? How did you get them to see your film? How did you? I just asked, like you give an opportunity to the person on the other side to say no, but at least you do your karam of trying and asking. And that has informed my entire hustle of making 40 plus movies and taking them to festivals and selling them around the world. And I think what is extremely underrated is curiosity. So when you have curiosity, you ask more questions, and that implies further clarity.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of, your choices have really reflected a lot of your inner strength and your confidence. In a lot of ways, the outside sort of voices don't matter as much. It's really, when I speak to you, it's almost the fact that you're only answerable to yourself, ultimately. That's the sense I always get. You aren't married yet. And I don't think being in a marriage is by no means a yardstick of being happy, right? It's more about being in a happy, fulfilled relationship should really be the right yardstick. Do you have a viewpoint on live-in relationships? Do you think it's like a conduit to marriage? I mean, do you believe in it? What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I'm not married and completely using the platform to say that I'm single. So please. But yes, I think you need to, find a partner. And marriage is something that, oh my God, it's so pressurized by the society and everything. I'd love to find a partner I can spend rest of my life. I'd love to find somebody who wants to grow together and, be as curious about life and experiences and the world outside, also not be so consumed in our little lives and our thoughts. Yeah, live-in works for me. I do come from middle class India. I come from a Punjabi middle class family. I know my parents will be very happy if I get married. So I want to be able to do that. And I mean, live-in works too, to each their own. But for me, I think it's years of conditioning, and I'd love to get married. Yeah.
Putting it out there to the universe.
Yeah.
I'm sure
Asking.
it's listening.
And
Yeah,
the
it's
right
asking.
person will arrive. Yeah.
So, when you talk about marriage and relationships in this world, which is rapidly changing as far as stereotypical gender roles are concerned, what does equality mean to you?
Yeah, equality is really important. I think, a lot of men are, also a lot of good men are asking the right questions. I feel like, what is feminism, or what is, how can we help? And what I'm trying to say is that we are all products of patriarchy, and we are all articulating our space. And we've all been told a certain things, that women work and men are the ones who are breadwinners. And then there's this whole generation of my generation where our parents were like, oh my God, our girls are going to go be brought up like boys because they were so suppressed. So there's this whole generation which is, built us as like go-getters, and, you don't have to do what I did. And then there's a whole generation of Indian men who've seen their mothers, still work at home. I have faced that, where I've been in relationships where I've kind of have to underplay what I do. I'm like, yeah, I don't make so much money. It's okay. So it's a very thin line. But then there are evolved people who believe in all sorts of equality, from responsibility to opportunity to pleasure to equality everywhere, So, and I think that happens with mature conversations, and that happens with, just feeling and putting it out there. And communication is at the core of it, There are people who write off feminism and are like, oh my God, you're talking so much. But, there are also kinder people who ask the right questions and who say, okay, how can we support? What is it about? There's suppression for so many years that women are now finding their way of articulating a sense of suppression, and everyone's figuring their way out. It does not mean that somebody is wrong or right or bad, or, it just means space. It just means space of thought, space of communication. And if you feel like that was not cool, there is a line that needs to be drawn. Those conversations should be healthy.
Yeah, yeah. But you have seen in the last few years, like you mentioned, 2019, you won the Oscar and a lot of other awards between then and now. And then very recently, you also put up your own production company, a bunch of other international awards. And recently you were knighted by the French government with the second highest civilian honor in France. Wow, that's quite something. Tell me, do you find that Indian men, and I don't know why I always say Indian men, but in my head, it's almost like Indian men and then men. I don't know why, but let's say men. Do you find that men in general get intimidated by successful women? Is that something you find it? And do you see a change over the years, or is it pretty much of the same?
I do think that they are intimidated. I think there is, again, we are all products of patriarchy. I think there are also amazing woke men out there who are comfortable in their own skin and who don't think that the problem is in their upbringing and they are products of patriarchy. So that kind of reflection is missing. But everybody's, again, projecting that maybe this doesn't work for me, or it's very deep rooted. The whole thing of boys don't cry, boys need to go make money, and they need to match and be equal. Or more and be the providers. So I think people who have traveled, lived on their own, and have had more exposure are definitely more informed. But otherwise, it's tough. I mean, Indian men is definitely a species, and they all should go to therapy.
I love the fact that you also said Indian man, because I say this to my husband all the time, and he thinks I'm like, but this is really true. This is really real. I mean, for the most part, we're generalizing, but yeah.
Yeah.
But when you look back over the years, what has been the most valuable lesson that life has taught you?
To show up every day. Again, we underestimate the work that we put in every day. It feels like every day nothing is really achieved. We get distracted and there's so much going on. But just the power of showing up and doing what you do adds up at the end of the month, at the end of the year, at the end of the decade. You feel like nothing is happening and I can't move this rock. But at the end of the decade, I feel like I've moved a mountain. And it was all because 1 + 1, 1 + 1, 1 + 1. So consistency. So I think the power of showing up is definitely a road to success. It's very easy to not feel like today is not a good day and I'll maybe sleep in extra. But if you don't do that, I think show up for what you do. And I think that is the most important thing in life.
And if you were to put one thing out to the universe right now in terms of ask, what would that be?
I feel I'm ready to start a family. It's a very beautiful feeling that I have. So I'd love to start a family. And that's my ask from the universe. Build my own home and my own, have babies. I've worked for so many years and I feel that now this chapter in life I'd love to begin. So yeah.
And finally, before you go, would love for you to play a round of rapid fire with me. Have you ever read the end of a book first?
All the time.
Your favorite time of day?
Mornings.
Complete the sentence. Color is?
Beautiful.
Happiness is?
Internal.
Life is?
Gift.
Guneet, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for doing this. Wish you the very best and may you grow from strength to strength and may happiness be your constant companion. And that was my chat with Guneet Monga. Thank you all for tuning in for our very first season of Heart to Heart. My name is Anuradda Gupta, and rest assured we shall be back soon with more heart-to-heart conversations. If you enjoy our show, please like us and subscribe because that always helps. And find Heart to Heart on Instagram and Facebook. See you next season.